going on, everybody out there? This is Popular Stranger. We are back at you again today for another MUT 17 player card review. Today we're going over Football Outsiders Richard Sherman. This card is a 95 overall with lockdown chemistry and Seattle defense ×2. We got both of those at a tier 2, and as you can see, he's boosted all the way up to a 97. But before we check out some gameplay on this card, and my apologies, it's a 94 overall. Before we check out the gameplay on this card, let's go ahead and take a look at his stats without the boost. 6'3", 90 speed, which is always a big concern for the community, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. 91 acceleration, 93 zone coverage, 90 man coverage, 93 agility, 94 press coverage, 89 play recognition, and 83 catching. We'll scroll through the rest of his stats. We got Champ Bailey card review coming up. Team of the Year, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. So we got some more cornerbacks along with a bunch of other cards to review, but if there's any other cards you'd like to see me review, feel free to leave it below in the comments section. Let's go ahead and see what this card can do on the field. So let's start by going over the pricing on this card. You can find him on the Xbox One for about $215K, on the PlayStation 4 about $257K. On MUThead.com they rate him as a 95 overall man coverage corner, 96 overall zone coverage corner, 94 jump ball, 96 when it comes to his range, 88 in run support, and he's a 94 overall rated physical cornerback. Now, MUTrank.com has him as the number 3 overall shutdown cornerback, and I want to talk about that for a moment because number 2 is the Super Bowl Malcolm Butler, and number 1 is Super Bowl Mel Blount. If you look at the prices compared to number 1 and 2 compared to Richard Sherman, those two cards are going for close to $1 million, if not over $1 million with Mel Blount, whereas you can get Richard Sherman for basically 75% less. I was absolutely shocked. I've said this in other reviews, but I was really shocked to see how cheap this Richard Sherman card is. I've had it pretty much since the beginning, and it's by far my favorite cornerback that I've used all season. In the BCA version, which is much cheaper for you guys who are on a strict budget for your MUT team, the BCA card, regardless of his speed rating, I know that's a huge concern, we'll talk about that in depth in a moment, it's no issue, man. His card plays absolutely fantastic in MUT 17. So let me get back to his ratings here. He's the number 5 overall zone cornerback, number 17 overall man coverage cornerback, and the 13th overall nickel cornerback. With the lockdown chemistry and the Seattle defense chemistry I mentioned earlier, we have both of those into tier 2. That gets him up to a 97 overall. So those rankings that I mentioned are when he's at his base at a 94. So just imagine how much better he is with those boosts. Speed, always a huge concern with these Richard Sherman cards. Not a factor at all. I think one of the biggest things that I notice with him is the way that he closes out on passes, especially in zone coverage. I typically play him in zone. He's not as good in man, but he's still pretty solid. But the way that he closes is just absolutely astonishing. He can get to the ball. A lot of people love to run C routes or, deep out routes or deep posts. Sometimes it looks like he'll be out of position, but then all of a sudden he just gets this boost and he comes out of nowhere and he'll jump up and either swat the ball away or make the interception. Obviously if he's going against a Brandon Cooks and somebody's just sending streaks downfield, you just have to learn to adjust, but for the most part he covers those about 80% of the time. Again, speed never ever a factor in my opinion. I typically, as I mentioned, play him in zone coverage about 85% of the time. I like to use guys like Dion and DRC for man coverage situations. I started out using him as my nickel cornerback. He wasn't as good as he was on the outside, so if that's where you're going to play him, that's what I would suggest, at least, to play him on the outside. He's great in run support as well. Just a great card for such a cheap price. Please go get this card if you play a lot of zone coverage for your defensive scheme. You will not regret it.